Have you ever gone shopping only to find your favorite products missing or shockingly expensive? From phones to medications to critical defense components, Americans are starting to feel the impact of something bigger than just inflation. At the center of it all is a growing shift in global trade. The United States has spent decades building a supply chain that depends heavily on China. But with rising geopolitical tensions, tariffs, and growing distrust, the U.S. is being forced to rethink its economic playbook. Here's the big question. Can the U.S. truly replace China, or has the supply chain grown too complex to untangle? On the surface, the solution seems straightforward. But behind every product we use lies a maze of dependencies few people ever see. In this video, we'll expose those links and what breaking them could really cost. We'll unravel this complex story, and trust me, what you discover by the end might completely change how you view everyday products. Why shifting away from China is so difficult. How deeply the U.S. depends on Chinese supplies. Whether reshoring American manufacturing is a realistic path forward or simply wishful thinking. Stay with us, because the next few minutes could open your eyes to vulnerabilities you never knew existed. For decades, China has been the backbone of global manufacturing, supplying everything from electronics to toys at unbeatable prices. However, recent geopolitical tensions and a series of hefty tariffs have disrupted this dynamic. The U.S. is now striving to reduce its dependence on Chinese manufacturing, but is it truly prepared for the hidden consequences? Today, we'll explore the feasibility of the U.S. replacing China in its supply chain, the challenges involved, and the far-reaching implications for industries you depend on every single day. Beyond finished goods, American industries, from pharmaceuticals to defense, rely heavily on Chinese raw materials, rare earth minerals, and components critical to production. Later in this video, you'll see why replacing these dependencies isn't just difficult, it's potentially one of the most complex economic shifts in modern history. China's role in global manufacturing is unparalleled. As of 2023, China accounts for approximately 29% of global manufacturing output, while the U.S. holds about 16%. But this level of dependence didn't happen overnight. It took decades of deliberate shifts, and now the consequences are coming home to roost. For much of the 20th century, the United States was the world's factory floor. But starting in the late 1970s, companies began chasing cheaper labor, looser regulations, and faster production. The result? A virtuous cycle for China and a growing dependency trap for the U.S. And it wasn't just about assembling products. Over time, American manufacturers also began relying on China for critical upstream components like rare earth elements, industrial parts, and raw materials. Even life-saving pharmaceuticals became tied to Chinese supply lines. But what happens when the very materials America needs most, for health, defense, and technology, are controlled by a strategic competitor? We'll dive deeper into that soon. In an effort to escape these risks, many companies have adopted the China Plus One strategy, diversifying manufacturing by adding other countries while still keeping a foothold in China. Nations like Vietnam, India, and Mexico have emerged as attractive alternatives. Vietnam, for example, has become a new hub for electronics, with giants like Apple and Samsung expanding operations there. However, there's a crucial catch, and it's a big one. None of these countries can match China's highly developed infrastructure, dense supplier networks, or consistent access to critical materials. For specialized goods, especially rare earth minerals, pharmaceutical ingredients, and military-grade parts, China's dominance remains largely uncontested. And this bottleneck isn't just inconvenient, it could become a national security issue. Coming up next, we'll look at the rising costs of trying to build alternatives. Transitioning manufacturing operations is neither cheap nor simple. Building new factories, training new workers, and establishing logistics networks demand immense investment. Take Mattel, for example. The company plans to cut U.S. imports from China to under 15% by 2026. But even for a giant like Mattel, moving production has been slow, expensive, and full of complications. And here's the kicker. Even if you move assembly out of China, you still often depend on Chinese raw materials and critical components. Without them, the assembly lines stall. These rising costs inevitably trickle down, hitting consumers with higher prices during an already fragile economic time. But what about small businesses? If giants like Mattel are struggling, what happens to Main Street America? The answer might surprise you. Stay tuned. Big corporations have safety nets. Small businesses? They often have none. Take Lane Go, a small business that has shifted production between China and Cambodia several times just to survive tariff changes. Each move strained their operations, eroded their profits, and introduced chaos into their logistics. And it's not just manufacturing. Many small businesses rely on Chinese-made parts, packaging, and supplies, connections they can't easily replace. Without affordable and reliable alternatives, many will face stark choices: raise prices, cut workers, shrink operations, or close altogether. The ripple effects of these struggles could reshape entire local economies. But small businesses aren't the only ones trapped. Up next, how even America's biggest industries, tech, defense, and healthcare, are dangerously exposed. Supply chains aren't simple pipelines. They're intricate webs. China's supplier networks, efficient logistics, and control over critical materials make it extremely difficult to replicate what they offer elsewhere. In electronics alone, from rare earth magnets to advanced semiconductors, China holds a commanding advantage. The pharmaceutical industry, over 70% of active ingredients in U.S. medications trace back to Chinese factories. Defense systems, fighter jets, missile guidance systems, and surveillance equipment often rely on rare earth components sourced from China. Relocating manufacturing isn't about moving buildings. It's about rebuilding entire industrial ecosystems. And that's a task measured in decades, not months. Coming up next, can automation and technology save the day, or will it just reveal how deep the challenges really go? Some hope that automation can help close the gap. Robotics, AI-driven production lines, and smart factories could, theoretically, make U.S. manufacturing competitive again. But here's the reality check. Automation can't mine rare earth minerals. Automation can't create alternative chemical supply chains overnight. And automation certainly can't replace skilled industrial ecosystems lost over decades. Even with high-tech solutions, massive upfront investments, in a highly skilled workforce, both of which are currently in short supply, many companies remain hesitant. While the Trump administration's tariffs aim to make domestic production more appealing, overcoming labor costs, regulatory hurdles, and material shortages is a mountain, not a molehill. The bigger question looms: can America rebuild its industrial backbone before the next global shock hits? Let's bring it. Replacing China's role in global supply chains isn't just about moving factories. It's about rebuilding entire systems of materials, technology, and logistics that took decades to develop overseas. While tariffs, especially under the Trump administration, aim to bring manufacturing back home, the reality is complex. Critical industries like pharmaceuticals, defense, and electronics still heavily rely on Chinese rare earth minerals, active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs, and components that are challenging to source elsewhere. Some progress is being made. Advanced manufacturing, automation, and selective reshoring offer glimmers of hope. However, achieving full independence will be expensive, complex, and time-consuming, and success is far from guaranteed. As this transition continues, consumers will feel the impacts first: higher prices, supply shortages, growing awareness of America's hidden vulnerabilities. The stakes, not just about where products are made, but about national security, economic resilience, and the future shape of American industry. This story is far from over. What happens next could redefine the global economy in your daily life. So make sure you subscribe, like, and share, because you'll want to stay informed as this global supply chain battle unfolds.